Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Autistic Tidbits and Tangents podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Kara Dymond. I'm an autistic teacher, university lecturer, author, presenter, etc., from Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
Hi, I've missed a couple of these, I think. I am Bruce Petherick. My day job is autistic advocate at Autism Canada, but very much in this time of year, I am also a professional musician in beautiful, Vancouver.
And I am Maja Toudal. I am an autistic psychologist and speaker, educator, author, stuff. I'm me.
And today we're actually going to be talking about Maya's second book, which is coming out this month on December
19th.
19th, I think that sounds right. On December 19th, on energy accounting.
Welcome to Autistic Tidbits and Tangents.
Candid conversations between autistic off-hour professionals.
With lots of tangents in different accents.
Cool.
Trigger warnings for this episode include discussions of school trauma, mentions of anxiety, depression, and related difficulties, capitalism, and ableism.
So we're talking about your new book coming out December 19, just in case we didn't say that before. And it's December 19 when it's coming out. I know it'll be at my house by December 19.
Mine too.
Can you explain what energy accounting is? And please excuse my cold.
Yeah, in a nutshell.
So energy accounting is a stress management tool that really utilizes the visual and the pattern recognition of autism to help kind of build more of a self understanding, along with because you can't do stress management or improve your quality of life without building an understanding of yourself. So it's kind of utilizing that visual pattern recognition and also maybe pushing a little bit in some other areas in order to help that process along. Really,
okay, you have to tell us what the other areas is. That sounds like a big secret.
No. So if I'm going to really break down energy accounting in, I don't like to call it steps because it's not steps and it's not something you do one at a time necessarily. It's not necessarily the same order, yada, 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 right? But so the first thing that we do is the energy bank, which is kind of going through what gives you energy, what takes energy from you, and to what degree. So we like to do value estimates in order to kind of go into some things take more energy than others. And that's important. And then after that, we delve into the why, because there are reasons that things will take your energy, right? And already there, we're starting the process of building self-understanding. Then we also like to really go into some psychoeducation about what is stress and what's the effect of neurotransmitters and hormones. What is the stress threshold or the stress vulnerability, the stress capacity that this person is currently dealing with? That's something that isn't stagnant throughout a person's life. It's something that evolves over time, both with maturity, but also with just life circumstances. Then we like a color coding system where we go into different kinds of activities. And that's a whole thing that
funds of energy.
I love talking about color coding. But then one of the really big things that we do in energy accounting is evaluations and monitoring. So instead of, we do like to try to make people as independent as possible with energy accounting, but we also emphasize that sometimes other people around you will notice things that you don't. Mm-hmm. And that's actually perfectly normal, and that using their perceptions can actually be beneficial. And that can be a little bit triggering for some autistic people.
I was thinking the trust issue in that one.
Yeah. And it can be a huge thing, but also it is actually really important. But it's always done, and I really want to emphasize this from the get-go. This is a neurodiversity affirming method, and everything about energy accounting should always be done with the full consent of the person you are working with. Right? Mm-hmm. So we're not trying to make your life something that you don't want it to be, and we're not trying to have others monitor or evaluate you. We're trying to give, like when we're talking about monitoring through others or having others help you with evaluating your well-being, the way we're doing that is always focused on what do you want their help with.
Yes. And I have to say, as someone
you can notice, right?
As someone with alexithymia, sometimes it helps me when I have a friend, like someone I really trust, be like, "Are you okay? You seem a little on edge." Because I might be like, "Oh, yes, I am. I am on edge. Why am I on edge?" Sometimes I don't realize that myself until I'm showing those signs of being like really irritable or just faster pace and frantic tension,
Yeah. And especially when it comes to longer term things as well, like when it comes to symptoms of anxiety or depression or burnout building, we very rarely notice that ourselves. Yeah. It's usually actually other people that start to notice, wait, you're not the way you usually are in these and these specific areas. Like I'm noticing these and these symptoms in you. And if we have a system built around a person where others are allowed to alert and they know how to alert the person, then it becomes an affirming method rather than something that is pushed onto them by others.
Yeah. Now, I know that this is a topic that has been percolating in your brain for well over a decade. I first heard of it before I even knew you when I was at a conference and your name was dropped in this concept. And I remember looking it up, and I have been showing students in my class about energy accounting at least 10 years. How did this come to be?
Yeah. So in my own life, it's kind of an old thing.
Who's the person with the gray hair here?
I know. And we're both like, oh, where's the...
No, but okay. I'm not allowed to say that I feel a little bit old, but so when okay. My own energy accounting journey starts almost 20 years ago. So in my late teens, I'm in severe burnout. I'm dealing with severe clinical depression. I've been suffering from generalized anxiety for most of my life and very severe depressions for most of my life as well. And I mean, I'm diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, aka autism, at 16. And it's not until 19 that I'm given a diagnosis of an attention disorder, but it's not an ADD or ADHD diagnosis. at that time. So I'm not given medication either, which much later I find out that would have actually helped a lot.
Right?
Yeah. Oh my God. Undiagnosed ADHD is...
Drugs are good.
No, but they are so transformative. Yeah.
Well, I mean, being given access to the drugs that you actually need, that is pretty helpful. So I'm down in my late teens. I am way, way, way down. And to the point where even people in my municipality, like you have a caseworker and such, right? Even there, it's kind of decided that there's probably no hope for Maja. She's never going to be okay. Like, everyone is just agreeing that there's no hope for me. So that will give you an idea of how I'm functioning at the time.
And she starts playing World of Warcraft, and everything opens up for her. And this links to last episode.
Of course, World of Warcraft fixed everything. That was sarcasm, by the way. I love World of Warcraft. It's definitely awesome. I'm not dissing my gaming at all, but definitely does not fix it.
No.
So I start doing these presentations with my now boss. Actually, her name is Kirsten Callesen. She's a psychologist here in Denmark. She is an autism and ADHD expert, primarily autism at the time, definitely. But like everything related to autism, she naturally comes in contact with it, and she's an absolute genius. And somehow, I have to say this because I love her. Like, somehow she manages to find the most genius people, and she gathers them around her. So she's got like a network of the most awesome professionals that you've never.
Is she autistic?
No, she's not. She's not.
I've had discussions with several autistic people about our ability to create connections like that.
Yeah.
And maybe not even be involved in the connection, but going, hey, person A, person B, and person C, you need to meet person D because you've got this idea. Bye. Anyway, sorry.
To my knowledge, she's not diagnosed with anything. If I were to make a fun little guess, I would say that she has somehow managed to get the version of ADHD that is actually a superpower. Like that's how she comes across.
Yeah.
Is like
able to mobilize and
the version. Like if there exists a version of ADHD, like I don't meet those people because I work clinically, right? So I meet people out there at the time when they need help, right? But so Kirsten is like, she never stops working, and she's always got 10 new ideas that she's working on, and she's always in contact with the people who are at the forefront of things all around the world. I don't know how she does it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like she never stops.
Yeah.
But also like when she's done with a project, she's done. And then it's boring.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I start doing presentations with her, and it's these presentations for parent groups, and there's sometimes like 4-hour long Q&As.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's pretty exhausting, but somehow I manage to get there every time. I don't miss a day. It's only a few days a year anyway, so it's not a huge thing like that. But like even when I feel really, one time I went actually with a fever.
Oh no.
We just talked about this before. Yeah, I know. But
stay home if you're sick.
I know. And usually we do that in Denmark, but like, again, if this is the thing that you're doing 4 days a year.
Yeah.
And it happens to be a day that you have a fever. It's like, no, I'm going to grab a cup of tea and I'm going to go. And one day she's like, you need to be a psychologist. You should be a psychologist.
That's so impactful, like to be told that by somebody who's doing that work. And when you're young, like when you're quite impressionable too.
Yeah. And someone that's not related to you.
Yeah.
Someone who's not your parent and who's supposed to believe in you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. This is someone whose opinion and whose judgment I really trusted and still do. Still do.
Obviously.
But obviously at that time, very, very impactful. But internally, I'm kind of panicking when she says that, because what that means is I'm going to have to go back to school.
Yes.
So in Denmark, our elementary school stops after 9th grade, or optionally you can do a 10th grade.
Okay.
I did the 10th grade. But that means that our equivalent of high school comes after that. And I don't have that. Like,
at this point. Wow.
Right? So I'm, am I 18 or 19 at this point?
Yeah.
I've been out of school for a couple of years.
And is this because you had a modeling career? Like, were you did that instead of school? Like, no. I'm so curious. That's so different than here, eh, Bruce?
It's almost inconceivable. Like, the number of kids that don't go through the whole 12 years is like minuscule. Even if they really needed to leave at grade 10 and do a whole bunch of other things with their lives. Like, even when that's a complete waste of time, kids have just pushed through because that's what has to happen.
Okay, but in Denmark, the way it works is that our version of high school, you really only need it if you want to go to university.
Which is the old system.
Yeah.
I'm just at the end of that in Australia. Okay. Everybody who went to grade 11 and 12, almost everybody was going to tertiary education of some sort.
Yeah, but we have other alternatives after elementary school.
Okay.
So these are, I don't even know how to translate this actually.
We used to have tech colleges or apprenticeship colleges. Is that sort of thing? We go and learn technical skills, or
something
mechanics and hairdressing and
or like event management or business accounting.
Wow.
Like certain things, you don't have to go through high school. You can do other things. And it's because there's a natural break there between elementary and high school for us. Some kids will take a gap year there, or some kids will take it after their high school or tech college or whatever it is, right? But I've kind of stayed out of school because school was the worst part of my life.
Yeah, it was traumatizing.
So for me, like, when I have to explain it, it's like when you're an autistic kid at school, you're not just going to school to learn the academics. Like, you're not going to school just to learn languages or math or history or whatever, right? That's also there. But you also, on top of that, have to learn social skills.
You have to navigate relationships.
But there's no instruction. There's no curriculum. There's no teacher. There's no guidance. You're just like there.
Left to your own devices.
And you just have to do it, right? And that's the thing that we can't do.
Yeah, not easily.
Add on top of that, you have the sensory environment of schools, which, do I have to say it?
Yeah, they're overwhelming.
The sensory environment of school is hell, right? So you're adding those three aspects together, and school, for me, is the most stressful thing I can do with my time.
Yeah.
So throughout my entire childhood, school has been the single most stressful thing in my life. I've not been able to express it in those words. I've not been able to explain why. I just know that I don't like going to school. And not because I don't like learning. I love learning new things. I love knowledge. I love nerding out about something, but I can't do it in a classroom.
Yeah.
Cannot do it in a classroom. So when my psychologist and now boss, Kirsten, when she tells me you should be a psychologist, she's saying you now have to do high school and university. And it's a master's degree in Denmark. I know that in many countries, it's a PhD that you have to do in order to be a clinical psychologist. In Denmark, it's a master's. So it's 5 years if you do it in time.
Yeah, yeah.
And at that point, I'm some days barely able to get out of bed.
Yeah.
Right. So my immediate thought is, how?
Your fight or flight kicks in.
I know that I have to do this because I know that somehow, even on my worst days, I can drag my ass to those presentations and do 4-hour Q&As and then go back home and collapse. I can do that because there's something in my gut, there's something in my being that is just drawn to do that work. I have to do that work. I know that by being there with those parents, I'm helping their kids. And I have to be there.
Yeah.
So I know when she tells me that I'm supposed to be a psychologist, I somehow have to do that. Because she wouldn't tell me that if she didn't believe that was something I could do, that I could make a difference doing. And I feel it. I feel the truth of what she's saying. But I'm terrified.
Of course.
So then I have to go on the big journey of figuring out how am I going to get through school.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about the classes. I'm not worried about the classes. I can do the work.
Yeah.
But I can't go to school. So how am I going to do that? So I'm lucky in the sense that I have access to her. I have access to some of her colleagues, and some of them once in a while will give me a free hour of therapy and teach me something about neurotransmitters or talk to me about stress vulnerability or sensory sensitivities or something, right? They're kind of, once in a while, I get that talk with someone who knows what they're talking about to help on my journey of self-understanding.
And you're like a sponge, just absorbing all of it.
Yeah.
Can you explain how that happened? Because even how did you get involved with Kirsten in the first place? If you can share that.
She was my psychologist.
Wow.
Yeah. So after I got my diagnosis, our story is a weird one. She's a weird person. She's amazing, but she's weird. So one of the really great things that my mother did after I got my diagnosis was that she recognized that I wasn't getting the help I needed. And she kept searching, and eventually she finds Kirsten. And she hires her to do a series of sessions with me to kind of, help me through the struggles that I'm going through, all of that, yada, yada, yada. So I have, I don't know, maybe 10 sessions or something like that, maybe 12. I don't know. I have a series of sessions with her. And most of it is just talking about what is autism? How does my autism present itself?
Yeah.
We talk a lot about self-worth, things like that. And then eventually the sessions that are paid for run out. And at that time, I'm living on my own. And I think I'm living on my own. Timing. Sometimes I don't remember what things happened at the same time in my life.
What happened when?
It's like parallel stories that aren't connected properly. Memory's funny. Okay, so I run out of sessions is the thing. And Kirsten, being the weird person she is like, well, I mean, you don't need a psychologist, really. You just need to talk to an adult sometimes.
Mm.
I mean, you don't need treatment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so she's like, why don't you come and babysit my daughter? So it becomes my job to pick up her daughter from school and take her to ballet class and do a little bit of homework with her.
Yeah.
Get her some food, things like that. And then just stick around until the parents come home. And I have dinner with them and then I go home. Right. Mm-hmm. So she was my psychologist. Now I'm her daughter's babysitter. And then from there, it's like, why don't you come and do these presentations? Yeah. Why don't you? What about this? Do you want to do this? Do you want to come to this conference?
So she really helped give you a purpose, which is amazing.
But I think she also just recognized that I didn't have hope.
Yeah. And you needed that.
I hate saying things about myself like this, but I think she recognized that I had some potential, mm-hmm. but that I wasn't being given the building blocks mm-hmm. to my self-worth and my self-esteem mm-hmm. to help push through some of those hard times.
Yeah.
And she was a teacher.
Yeah. A mentor. Yeah, absolutely. And still is. Mm-hmm. I don't see her very often or talk to her very often at this point because she's busy.
Yeah.
But I don't know. She's, even since I stopped seeing her often, she's kind of that person floating out there in the world that's kind of like, you got this. You got this. Go. Fly, little bird, fly. Which is a really weird and fun relationship to have with someone. Mm-hmm. Right. So I'm learning about myself. I'm learning about stress. I'm learning about autism. And then I remember this one specific moment in time. So I'm living by myself. I have my own apartment. I have very limited finances. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting there looking at my Excel spreadsheet with my budget.
Wow.
For the year. So I always budget in years, and I have everything very systemized and very, it's not a small document. It's fine.
Oh, wow.
Stick. So I'm looking at that and I'm like, okay, I'm able to not only survive, but get everything I need with this very limited budget that I have. I'm able to somehow manage all of this, even though I have so few pieces to move around, right? Why can't I do that with my energy?
Mm.
Why am I constantly falling into these pits of not being able to do anything or running out or collapsing? Why?
Yeah. Speaking of, the other day, sometimes you look on something on social media and it calls you out. Yeah. I saw something and it was like, if you have ADHD, don't sit down when you get home because you will not get up again. And I was like, that's me.
Yeah.
Because there is such a big crash that happens for us at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I think for several neurodivergencies, it's, our energy is spent on things that we don't see mm-hmm. or notice, things that aren't concrete. Mm-hmm. And we don't necessarily recognize that energy being spent.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it just hits us.
And similar to spoon theory, with physical disabilities and chronic mm-hmm. illness and all of these things, we use energy in a way that is different from people who do not have those things or those, and something that seems simple can take far more energy than for somebody who is able-bodied, full health, not neurodivergent.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that was so I'm on this journey at this point in my life with figuring out different things about stress, picking up things from different professionals, but also other autistic people, and kind of getting more and more of a sense of maybe what needs to happen for me to improve. Right. So I'm obviously focused on getting through school. I have something very concrete that I want to do, that I want to achieve. Right. But also, like, I just want to have fewer meltdowns and fewer shutdowns and fewer depressions. Like,
right.
that would be nice, wouldn't it?
It would be.
So I start thinking about my energy in terms of what do I spend? Where do I spend it? And at the beginning, it's kind of similar to spoon theory. I hadn't heard of spoon theory at the time, but at the beginning, it's very similar in the sense
how you know it's a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. Like, lots of people come up with their own version of energy accounting. And that's awesome. That to me is a sign that
we're on the right track. Yeah.
It's something that works. Otherwise, like, it wouldn't exist in so many different forms. Right. So in the beginning, very simple, very like energy in, energy out, the activity, spending energy. Okay. How do I recharge? Right. And then eventually it hits me, like, because I'm going to school in the beginning, like 6 hours a week, then 10 hours, then 12. Like, I'm taking baby steps in order to recover from this burnout that I'm in. And so at some point it hits me, like, energy isn't just energy. Like, different kinds of energy work in different ways. And so when I teach about energy accounting, which I've been teaching about energy accounting for over a decade.
Well, over a decade, yeah.
A really, really long time. And usually I'll include these metaphors like let's talk about color coding for a little bit, right? So I like to color code in my calendar. But two specific metaphors that I tend to go to is like social energy and physical energy. And I give social energy the color red because it's like heart to me, right? And for some reason, physical is blue. Okay. I think that's because so many health services have blue in their logos. Like, it's just an association, right?
Yeah.
So I like to say that social energy is like our heating, water, and electricity bill.
Okay.
I don't know how it works in Canada or in Australia, but in Denmark, you don't pay that bill every month. You pay it every third month.
Oh, that's nice.
So you have to, no, but I mean, you're still paying the same amount throughout the year, right? But it means that you have to recognize that there is that expense coming. And you have to budget throughout the year, because otherwise you're going to get hit with bigger bills.
Yes.
Right? So when I think about social energy and autism, it's like, no, we can't be social all the time because, like, that's draining for us. That's really draining.
Well, and some things that add to our bank account are also deduct, right? Like, there's a cost to do the thing, even though you get something.
But that's exactly the thing. That's why I call this our water, electricity, heating bill.
Yeah.
Is that if we're not social at all, that runs the risk of depression, loneliness, right? Because being social, that's our oxytocin. Yes. That's our connection to other people. That's our shield against loneliness. And I'm not ever advocating that people have to be social in the same amounts, or with the same number of people or anything. Like, people have very different social needs.
Yes.
But if your particular social needs, whatever they are, aren't met, that puts you at risk of loneliness.
Yes.
Which puts you at risk of depression.
And so there are these, like, you talk about different funds of energy. So different things that you have to build in, you have to make time for, you have to be aware of in order to make sure that you're sort of meeting all of your energy needs.
Exactly. Because if we don't pay our social energy account bill, right? Yeah. If we don't pay that bill, if we don't spend that energy on being social, we run the risk of getting really cold and things get dark, don't they?
They certainly do.
Yeah. And I have the same thing with the physical account. It's like, exercise and a healthy diet and focusing on getting enough sleep and trying to whatever you can do to get better quality sleep. Like, those are not exciting strategies to implement.
Yeah.
They're not super fun for most of us.
Yeah.
But it's so crucial because if our nervous system doesn't get what it needs, then it becomes much more volatile. And we could compare it to like blood sugar levels.
Okay. Yeah.
Blood glucose, right? Yeah. Like if you are eating junk, and I love chocolate. Like
open some of those cupboards, Maja. I bet there's some junk food back there.
I'm not advocating ever getting fundamentalist about this.
Yeah.
But like if you're only eating junk, your blood glucose is going to be all over the place. Like it's going to be up and down and up and down and up and down. And that's going to impact your mood. It's going to impact your physical health. But it also impacts indirectly your stress levels.
Yes.
Because when your mood is more volatile, you're much more vulnerable to being stressed out by things that are happening around you. Right? So when it comes to like exercise and food and sleep and all of that, it's really about stabilizing your stress capacity.
Yes.
It's about stabilizing your nervous system to be able to cope better with daily life. Nothing has to be perfect. It just has to be good enough, right?
Yeah.
It just has to be good enough. That's fine. And so I don't like when I'm helping people through their own energy accounting, it is this huge long journey of like, how do we build a life that makes sense for you? And sometimes, a lot of the time, people are like, yeah, I don't exercise. I cannot. That's not going to happen. I hate sweating, or I'm not going to go to the gym, or la, 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 la. And I'm like, okay, fine. Let's find anything that can help, improve your overall physical health. Anything at all. Can you get 15 minutes of daylight every day?
Can you drink more water?
Yeah. Anything. Baby steps. We'll get there. 2% improvement at a time is still 2%.
Exactly.
And that adds up. And so, my own journey from being in a years-long burnout and suffering from severe clinical depression and to, I would say, a reasonably functional state where I was like, okay, done with the high school thing. University, here I come.
Yeah.
Still terrified of it, by the way. Yeah. Absolutely still terrified because, like, university is a big thing to chew on. I think that journey for me was about 6 or 7 years. Right? So, but I was putting the pieces together myself.
Yeah. I
didn't have a full package of like, here are things you can do. And I had, bits and pieces of information come at me here and there. And so it's about 10 years ago that I invited Tony Attwood out to eat. He comes to Denmark a lot. And I invited him out to eat, and I was like, I have this idea for a book.
Yeah.
I'd already told him about energy accounting, and he was a big fan of it, and he started implementing it clinically immediately.
Mm-hmm.
But the next time he was in Denmark, I was like, we should write a book about this because people need this. And at the time I was like, well, you have the clinical experience and I have the personal experience. So we can you can write the clinical part and I can write the personal part and it'll be great. And none of us had any idea how big this book was going to be and how long we would be working on it.
Yes.
But what happened was just that, every time we'd kind of gone through, okay, what do we want in this book?
Mm-hmm.
It would force me to reconceptualize and make everything more concrete and think of, okay, but how are we actually presenting this to people? And how do we make it not too autism specific?
Mm-hmm.
Because very early on, we were also talking about energy accounting isn't an autism thing. Like stress management and better quality of life, that's not autism. That's everyone who experiences stress. It's everyone.
Just everyone.
Yeah. So in the book, actually, because both of us work in the field of autism, we reference autism a lot. We talk about things from an autistic point of view. But I've also really wanted to kind of build in there that it's not autism specific, that this is for everybody.
Yeah.
And so we just had to constantly go back and rework the entire thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, I still don't think it's perfect. I want to do a second edition
already. I love that.
No, but at some point, we'd been working on it for so long. And at some point we just had to say, it's done. It's done. We have to put it out there because until the book is out, it's just us doing our thing. And yeah, we're teaching about it at conferences and whatnot, but
you can have many more rich discussions once this work is done more broadly in other places.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And it's going to help so many more people when there is a format that really allows both professionals and the user, the autistic person or the ADHD person or whoever, person with stress, when they have the book, they don't need us. They don't need to buy an expensive ticket for a presentation or a conference.
Yeah.
They can buy a book, right?
Yeah.
And maybe the book isn't enough to remove the need for a therapist or for some kind of other person that's working with you through it. For some people it will be, but maybe not for everyone. And that's fine, but it's still saving you a ton of time by presenting that framework, which is...
Actually, I need to ask a question, and it's been, as I've been listening to you, it's still... There's often, I listen to an idea and go, that's just kind of common sense. Why isn't everybody else seeing that? And again, this isn't a criticism. It's just my brain.
But it's completely true. It's completely true.
What I'm hooking into this, which is different than almost any other self-help regime, and that's a really bad phrase, but that's okay.
Self-help is good. It's just that it gets a bad rap.
So I think when I'm talking to people, like from in my work, as from a client perspective, one of the things I start talking about is becoming aware of what takes up your energy, and recognizing that you need to refill it, and that actually I was talking to somebody just the other day who was having some problems with a partner, and it's like, okay, so if you need to go to a social event, you're going to take a couple of days to prepare for it. You go to the social event, then you need some time to recover from it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I'm noticing that everything I'm doing is all done on an individual level. And what's kind of interesting, as you started explaining it, it was almost like, this is not a one-person process. This is at least a two-person, or at least one and a community. How has that, when you talk to especially professionals about this, how have they taken it?
So when you say that something is common sense, and then you ask that question, that's actually really interesting, because a lot of professionals will have sort of the same reaction with like, oh my God, it's kind of common sense. Like it's kind of like, why hadn't I thought of that?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, wow, mind blown. Wait, we can do this? And I'm like, yeah, we can do that. Yeah.
People need these reminders. It reminds me a little bit of like Ross Greene's kids do well if they can, not if they want to. When you actually get people to think about it, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. That's absolutely true.
Yeah. But I think what hits home with a lot of professionals when I talk about energy accounting is that it's visual, it's practical, it's something you can pick up and use
and easily adapt to.
Exactly. So a lot of the teaching that I do is either like presentations for parents or at conferences where there will be more professionals present. And the general thing that a lot of presentations are theoretical, and especially at conferences, it's like, oh, there's this new research, or there's this new theory, or, oh, what if we thought about this from this point of view? And that's amazing. That's great. New ideas. Welcome it. But there's so little practical, applicable information. And I think what happens when I show up with energy accounting is that people are like, wait, I can go home and use this today. And yeah, you can. You can. Because it's like the basics are really simple. It's a long journey. And it's a hard journey because people aren't stagnant. People constantly develop. People constantly are in motion in their identity, in their needs, in
their stress capacity in that moment.
Yeah, exactly. Everything about human life is dynamic. And so it's when we think about the longer journey, it's complicated and it kind of never ends. But also at the same time, getting started is super simple.
And I mean, I've used this in a number of teaching capacities. So I've used it in elementary school with my young autistic students, just getting them to think about, at a very basic level, energy as a bank account, and what are the things that restore your energy balance, and what are the things that deduct from that. And then understanding, like, if you know this week you have a test and you have, a family coming over on the weekend, and that's going to be stressful for you, you especially have to build in time to restore those points of energy. And then obviously the more complex level, so when I work with like one-on-one with clients, or even in graduate school, I teach a little bit of energy accounting as well. what are the funds of energy? What should you be trying to build in visually into your schedule to make sure that you are getting different sources of energy? I have to say my graduate students love learning a little bit about energy accounting and it's one of the things I really try to emphasize throughout the course, because I'm very anti-capitalist and I'm always trying to teach them your worth is not your work. Your worth is not how much you produce. As you navigate graduate school and jobs and all of these things, you have to be building in these things that restore you, because the first thing that we cut when we're stressed out, when we have lots of deadlines, tends to be the things that will actually sustain us through those things and stave off burnout.
It tends to be self-care that goes.
Yeah.
And that's the last thing that should go.
Exactly.
I always provoke a little bit when I do my presentations on energy accounting.
Yeah.
Because I love using an example of an autistic kid having a meltdown at school, but on a Tuesday.
Oh yeah, how do they get through the rest of the week?
There isn't a weekend coming up right around the corner, right? A kid has a meltdown on Tuesday. Okay, we're not just going to send that kid back to school on Wednesday, are we? No, because meltdowns take it out of you. Meltdowns are super rough on your nervous system and therefore on your body, on your cognition. You need time
to recover,
to repair, because bodies actually physically respond to stress with lower energy levels, with the adrenaline burns off fairly quickly, but cortisol, which is the other stress hormone, cortisol sticks around.
Yeah.
And if you're just sending that kid back to school and putting them through more stress, the risk of another meltdown is just increased.
Not to mention the impact on learning. You can't learn. Anxiety is the nemesis of learning, as I always say.
Yes. And so the example that I do is okay, so of course, this kid is going to stay home the next day. Of course they are, right? Yeah, that's the way to go. But one day might not be enough. It might be 2 days. But then also there's a period after that I like to build in, which is, I just refer to it as a take care period of time, which is let's lower some demands for a little bit. Let's take some days to allow that child to fully recover.
Yes.
So adult nervous systems, we talk about this a little bit in the book. But if you really want to learn about this, I recommend that you read a book called The Deepest Well by Nadine Burke-Harris. It's a fantastic book. It's not about autism. It's about stress and children. So we know that children's nervous systems, children's bodies respond differently to stress than adults, right? So as an adult, I might be able to push myself and be okay, I am teetering on the edge. Maybe I can't really do the second day of this conference or whatever it might be. But I have recovery time coming up on that day.
Yeah.
I can hold on until then.
Yeah.
A child can't do that. They can't. It's not even that they're not trying hard enough, or that maybe if we give them the right circumstances, maybe they could anyway. No, a child cannot. We cannot push children's nervous systems to that point, because the consequences long-term of doing that are too high.
Yes.
So based on everything I know, I'm children need challenge, children need stimulation, children need learning, children need to get out there and be in the world. Yes, definitely. But children do not need stress, ever.
It's common sense.
Common sense. Common sense. But like, people ignore this fact so much because we're so focused on test results and attendance, and it doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense. And like, we've been watching in the professional sphere, we've been watching the rates of childhood depression, anxiety, and stress so it's not PTSD, it's not a diagnosis, but in the system that we use in Danish, we have a diagnosis called like an overload reaction or a load reaction, which is kind of similar to burnout.
Yeah.
And we've been watching the rates of those symptoms in children skyrocket for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Globally.
Yes, I definitely see a difference in schools today as opposed to when I first started. And
I think a part of it. Yeah,
if you can keep this there was a meme that I saw just this morning, and I'm still not awake yet, but this I remembered. It's like parent talking to child, and the parent says, "You look really upset," or "You're not handling things very well," and the child says, "Yes, that's because the earth is burning, and there's no money, and I'll never be able to get a job, and the Nazis are back in power, and you're asking me to do too much stress." And the next line is, "Yes, it must be iPhones." Sorry, I wanted to put that out, but again, it's the common sense. I get that. Very often we can see it, but it's like, everyone's just ignoring it. Again, if I may, the child having the meltdown, again, when I talk to clients about this, you talk about the recovery period, it's great. I always emphasize, when the child is having the downtime, think what caused it. What have you done? What's the environment done? Like, it's no good getting the kid back if it's just going to happen again. Like, what's happening?
Definitely.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. But
that collaborative, proactive
solutions
solutions piece. Yeah.
So that's actually a big part of energy accounting, is taking it from reactive stress management to proactive stress management. So one of the big issues, especially, when we're dealing with kids or adolescents who are going through school refusal, they don't get there just because, right? And when
there's always a reason. There's always a reason for school refusal. Sorry.
And often it's overriding those limbic breaks, Stuart Shanker. But the same thing you're talking about, that there's this point at which we should never push children past, or anyone past, like that stress capacity, because then they will be in fight or flight every single time they're in that situation again.
Yeah. And every single day. And like, we see kids very often in our clinic. We usually get the toughest cases because we don't really get them until the municipalities like, we can't handle this anymore.
Yeah.
So that's when I see them, right? So at the point in time when we get the kids in our clinic, they've been in school refusal for years. They have not been in school for 2 years, 4 years, right? And okay, fine. We're going to do some treatment. We're going to work on getting this kid out of burnout, because that is what school refusal is. Like, same mechanism. I don't care what you call it. That's what it is. Okay, we're going to do some treatment. That's fine. We're not going to put that kid back in that same environment.
Yeah.
Because that environment is what caused it. So obviously, we have to change the environment to suit the child, so that we don't get another round of school refusal, burnout, anxiety, depression, or whatever else worse things might arise. We're not going to do that. We're going to find something else, something that works, something that actually stabilizes their nervous system and gives them room to develop again. gives them room to access their own potential again.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that sounds exciting, right? Let's do that. And so I know that we're supposed to be talking about energy accounting, whatever. My boss, Kirsten, I'm just going to bring her up again.
Okay.
Because she made a school. She was kind of sick of how it was being done at the, in Danish, we call them special schools and treatment schools. So special schools is like the step after the regular average, any kid goes their school.
Mm-hmm.
We've got special schools, and then treatment schools is like, okay, this is bad.
Yeah.
And she was like seeing the interventions at treatment schools and being like, but that's not working. That's not working, guys. So she made a school. She made a treatment school.
Wow.
Yeah. It's 10 years old now, that school. And has grown to actually be pretty big. And it's really expensive, this school. Because a lot of the kids that are there have a teacher one-on-one all day, every day. Mm-hmm. But of course, they don't go to that school for no reason. They go there because they can't go anywhere else, right? So why spend all of that money on sending a kid to school? Well, of course, they have a right to an education, yada, yada, yada. So let's talk capitalist for a little bit. Like that, let's take the capitalist perspective for a minute. Like, I know what this school costs per student per month. I know the number. Mm-hmm. And it is a lot. Mm-hmm. It is a lot. Why is it worth it? Well, because these children for whom there was no hope, they were not able to go to any other school, they suddenly go to school. They suddenly get their diploma and they move on to high school. Mm-hmm. And they move on to other educations. They move on to a future that is not being on government, like disability services, mm-hmm. for the rest of their lives. From the moment they turn 18, they might have otherwise been put on some disability check. And fine, just exist, right?
Or disappear.
But we know that disability checks are expensive. Like that's a lot of money for the government to keep paying out, right? It's also a lot of wasted potential. And so we're seeing these kids at this school turn around, be able to go to school, get their diploma, like suddenly have a concept of, I might have a future. Like what happened with me. Like exactly what happened with me.
Yes.
Right? And all of it is by changing the environment to suit the student. Mm-hmm. That's it. It's what they do at that school. I mean, obviously they're doing teaching as well, but what they're doing is basically proactive stress management, mm-hmm. and focusing on that individual child's life and what that might look like in a way that's positive and beneficial for them.
Yeah.
And it's the exact same philosophy that I have in energy accounting is I don't want to talk about what stress management looks like in a cookie cutter format. That's not interesting to me. Yeah. You can send anyone to learn mindfulness. Like, sure, okay. But mindfulness doesn't work for everyone.
No, exactly. People need their personal strategies, their personal understanding of what supports they need, what works for them.
Exactly. And so that's energy accounting is, let's take a step back. Let's look at everything that takes and gives energy. Let's look at the why. Let's look at why you go into meltdowns. Let's look into what the consequences are. Let's look at how we can prevent that from happening over and over and over, and, ruining your nervous system and putting you in a burnout that's going to take years to come back from.
Yeah.
Let's prevent that, and let's keep preventing it for the future.
I love being in the space where I'm sharing this call with two people who are building self-awareness in different perspectives. Because as Maja was just finishing that little section, I was thinking, gee, this is just like Kara's book on metacognition. And and I will also say, it's never, it's common sense, but one of the most important things for me, helping people through their journey, is to be becoming more self-aware.
Yes, and that's the nexus of our work. Yeah.
I'm doing this because, and you may not work it out for 2 years, but that's okay. But when you get I do this because this, it lets you manage it a bit more, or accepting it just happens, or I can change something so it doesn't happen anymore. That's your choice. I just love the fact that we're all looking at this, and it's from an autistic perspective, I think is really super important. But of course, as with almost all of our work, yes, we talk about autism, but in fact, what we're doing is helping everybody.
And I think it's because we're all focused on getting people the supports that they need. And to do that, they need to tell us, they need to have a voice in saying, this is where I'm struggling. This is what's hard. This is what works.
Yeah.
And because that's how you learn to self-advocate. First, looking inward, self-reflecting, and then you are able to ask for the things that you need, or implement the things that you need, and build skills and build other people's skills, and the understanding of people around you, of the supports that help.
Yeah. Okay, so can I talk about something that
Off
I'm
topic?
probably not going to get a chance to say anywhere else?
Yeah. We love the tangents.
Well, it's kind of a tangent, but it's also not.
Awesome.
I don't know.
Is it a tidbit, though?
Yes.
Is it a tidbit? It has to be a tidbit or a tangent.
Oh, damn.
That's the rules.
Darn. I don't know if I can do that.
No.
It's okay. We're forgiving.
Okay,
we'll pretend it's a tidbit.
Okay, so about the book. Obviously, a part of energy accounting is color coding.
Yeah.
Which I mentioned that at the beginning. Here's the funny thing. Printing in color is expensive.
Yeah.
So the book's in black and white?
No.
Oh.
Maja pushed for some color because of the color coding. Like, this was so central as an idea.
Okay, so fun thing, because printing in color is so expensive, Tony and I spent a year fighting for the publisher to print in color. Like, we spent a year convincing them that it was going to be worth it, that people were going to buy the book anyway, even though it's a little bit more expensive. We spent a year convincing them. And we had to cut out a fourth of the book.
Yeah, they have an addendum, right? Like
the content. Yeah.
Just to put the color in.
Yeah. Because putting the color in was like, it was that much more expensive that the publisher came back to us and was like, okay, if you want color, this is the maximum number of printed pages we can have. Right here. This is the number. 256 printed pages. That is the maximum. You can have no more. And we were like, oh shit. We have to remove 25% of the contents of this book.
This is like my nightmare. I like having to cut something.
Right? I know.
I start.
It's insane.
Yeah.
So what we ended up doing was we took those 25%. We figured out what bits to remove, and we put them in downloadable material instead.
Yeah. Or on a website or,
yeah. Yeah. So that's the important part. If you do go and get this book, please know that there is additional material that you can download from the publisher.
Bonus content.
It is going to be available on the publisher's website. I don't know exactly how that functions, but to my knowledge, it like from what I can see based on the files that I've been sent, it looks like it's basically a free download.
Yeah.
Like I don't think you need a code or anything. But just know that it is there. Go and get that downloadable material.
Yeah.
Because there is actually, like, some bits of it are fun extras, but some bits I personally think are pretty important. Like, for example, our guide to neurotransmitters and hormones.
Yes.
Where we go through serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine, endorphins, and acetylcholine. We go through what is it? How do we get it?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's in the downloadable material, and you're going to want to go get that.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally.
But wait, there's more.
There's more. So it's not ready yet. I'm going to be perfectly honest about that. But I have almost a month to get it done at the time of recording this. I am finishing up a website that will be energyaccounting.com. And on that website, there will be free downloadable handouts that you can use when you're working through this book. So go get those too.
And Maja, when's the book available again?
December 19th.
Sorry, did you say December 19th?
December 19th, 2024.
And you can pre-order now, right?
You can pre-order it right now, pretty much anywhere you get your books. And if you're having a hard time finding it, just Google Energy Accounting book. If you want, add my name. That might help. If I
definitely
Google Energy Accounting book, then it comes up.
Yeah.
So you should be able to find it. And you can pre-order it now. And then if the couriers do their work, then it should be at your doorstep probably on December 19th, right in time for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
What a wonderful Christmas gift this sounds like.
I know.
Yes. I've already gotten it for somebody for Christmas, and they're probably watching this and they know I'm getting it for them, I bet.
Oh, no.
No, it's okay.
Okay. No, but I really wanted to say that the reason that I'm making the downloads, like the handout downloads, free is because I think they should be.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of weeks ago, I was Googling energy accounting and kind of just seeing, like, what are people talking about? Like, what's out there right now, right? And I came across someone, and I'm obviously not going to say who it is, but I came across someone who is selling downloads, like worksheets for energy accounting.
Yeah.
And they're calling it energy accounting as well, which is like, that's fine. But the fact that they were charging for worksheets, that to me doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually called Kara after I saw this. I actually, that same day, I called you.
Yeah.
And ranted for like a good full hour.
Understandably.
Because I was so flabbergasted and offended.
Well, and it was someone you had worked with, right? Or you had discussed the idea with?
That was
a different
thing.
person.
That was a different thing.
Also annoying.
Like, that's whatever.
That's another rant.
No, but like, okay, so here's the thing. energy accounting exists in many forms. Lots of people come up with this idea in their own form. That's fine. I don't own the words energy accounting. I don't own the concept of something giving energy or taking energy. I don't own that. I don't care. That's fine. The only thing that I've done is this energy accounting, and I think this is pretty awesome. I think this works, is actually what I want to say.
Not just you think it works, there is clinical research that supports the use of this.
Not research. Not research. But there is 10 years of clinical work supporting this in multiple countries. Tony and I have been using this clinically for at least 10 years, more really. And we have been teaching it across the world for 10 years. We have really good support at this time to say that this works. We believe this is the thing to do. So that's my argument for my energy accounting.
Yeah.
And also that like I made it. Like I'm a neurodivergent person who was going through burnout, going through clinical depression, trying to cope with my own anxiety. I've been there. And this is what saved me. This is what got me through it.
What do you think your life would have been like had you known about this and been using this from childhood?
From childhood?
Yeah, if someone taught this to you in childhood.
I don't think I can even imagine. Like having supports, having strategies, building that self-understanding throughout my childhood rather than throughout my 20s. That would probably make a pretty big difference. I don't think I would have ended up where I was as a teenager.
That's always this is one of those unknowables. And but I think for this is like, this would have made such a change in your life. This is not like, it's not like the butterfly effect. What happens if you hadn't gone through door A and went through door B? This is more like, what happens if the entire world was rebuilt for you?
Yeah.
It's having supports available. It's having accommodations. It's knowing more about myself. But like this would also assume that I was diagnosed earlier than I was.
Yes.
Additionally, so there's all of that too. But I just think that if there had been adults around me at the time of my first severe clinical depression when I was 7 years old, if there had been adults around me at that time who had thought, gee, what contributed to this really severe depression? How can we avoid that happening again? I think that would have made a difference.
Well, I know your book is going to make a difference, and it already has. Like I said, I've been using it and seeing that trickle down effect of sharing these types of concepts and getting people thinking about better balance in life and better ways of engaging in the self-care that you need, and not pushing through just because we think we have to.
Yeah. Obviously, you've actually already read the book because you were one of the beta readers.
I was. I love it. I've been telling everybody about it. December 19th.
It feels so corny to be self-promoting.
Well, it's also because you're Danish, so.
Yeah, I don't get it. It feels weird. There was something I wanted to say. Oh, yeah.
It's just common sense that people should get the book.
It's just common sense that everyone should get the book, and everyone should also like get the book for someone in your life who's feeling stressed out. Mm-hmm. Which is everyone.
Exactly. A book for you, a book for you. We'll be like Oprah, you know?
Yeah. So there's one thing that we decided to include in the book. And actually the publisher asked if this was the part of the book that we wanted to cut when we had to cut the 25%. 25%. So at the end of the book, you will find a clinical program outline, which outlines not session by session, because it won't necessarily be a session, but like
sequence.
Like stage by stage, or, you know, phase by phase, whatever. And so the publisher asked us, like, is this the part of the book that we should cut? Because this is really only for clinicians. And here's the thing. At that point, I had already had the book through a couple of readers, autistic readers, not professionals, but just your average person, who happened to have contacted me and been like, I've heard about energy accounting. Can you help? And so what I did with them was like, you know what? I'm in the process of writing the book. I obviously can't give it to you in that sense, because then I would be breaking my contract. But if you agree to give me feedback, then you are now a beta reader. And then I can send you the book. So I had already had it through some readers, and several of them actually got back to me with the feedback that clinical program at the end of the book really tied it all together for them and made it so much easier to go through everything themselves. Like reading the book and then going through the clinical the program outline. That was the thing that made it all click.
It's like the what and then the how, right?
And on the one hand, writing a book like this, you want to put the how as early as possible, but also it's so difficult. So it's there, it's all collated at the end. So if you are a reader who is not a professional and you see the words like clinical implementation or clinical program outline, read it anyway. Don't walk away from it because those words sound scary and there's a couple of paragraphs that won't be relevant to you. Just read it anyway, because the actual program outline is really practical, step by step, and is going to make it very approachable for you. So I wanted to.
There's a couple of books I recommend to people all the time, which are both clinical. And I say to them, like, yes, this is written for the clinician, but forget about that. What the stages. And the one I was thinking about is Diagnosing Autism in Women and Girls, which is a guide for clinicians. And it's like, it doesn't need to be. It's everybody can read it. Forget the clinical aspect of it, because it's talking about different examples of masking in different situations. It's useful for everybody, especially people who think they're autistic, or parents saying, I think my child is autistic. Have a look at this book and see if things are resonating with you. Anyway,
No, but it's such an important point, because I think a lot of information is actually gate kept in that way in clinical books.
For sure.
And it's almost like, because they are marketed towards professionals purposefully, they are overlooked by a lot of lay people who might really benefit from reading them. So I think it's a really good point, not just with that particular book or with energy accounting, but with really so many books. I mean, there are so many books that are so relevant. Actually, can I talk about one of those?
Yeah. Book recommendation.
So a colleague that I really look up to is Peter Vermeulen.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want to get him on the podcast. I love his
Oh,
focus on happiness.
But actually, let's
Autistic
get
happiness.
him. Well, that, but also this book.
Yeah, okay.
That I want to mention. So he wrote a book. This was actually a theory that I discovered while I was writing my thesis in uni, my master's thesis.
Okay.
And so I already knew about it. And I actually then met Peter Vermeulen at a conference in Spain, of all places.
Yeah. And you had dinner together.
And we, like, I had this theory included in my presentation.
Yeah.
And he was like, you know about that theory? Yeah. Okay, so this theory is called predictive coding, and he wrote a book called Autism and the Predictive Brain. Yes.
I have it too.
It has it right there. Yeah. And it's, it's such a difficult theory to comprehend because it's so technical. But because Peter is such a good writer,
very good writer,
it becomes approachable.
Yeah.
And this book is definitely something that it's more so professionals that will pick it up because of the title and because it's kind of marketed that way. Read it anyway.
Yeah.
Read it anyway.
Yeah.
Like it explains so much about why the world is stressful for autistic people. And like, sure, I can do a summary in 5 minutes of that theory, but it's not going to give you the level of understanding that reading that book is, because it's so well written.
Yeah.
It's gold.
We'll do an episode on that too. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
There's a bit in that book early in the first or second chapter. And Peter, it's not actually relevant to the theory. It's about how he's building it up. But he talks about how every experience we have is a new experience, that we are reliving every environment we go in.
Yeah.
And there's something else he talked about, and I think it was about sensory processing. It has fundamentally changed my teaching on sensory friendly places, fundamentally. And in fact, I've now changed the language to sensory sensitive environments. I'm looking more at hyperreactivity as well as hyperactivity, and making people we had a really good idea of what a sensory friendly space should be, and there's just like a paragraph suddenly just went boom.
Yeah.
These books are wonderful.
He is a very gifted educator and gifted writer, and also a fantastic person.
And I can't wait to hopefully meet him and you in September, because we're all keynote speakers at the same conference.
Yeah. No, you will. He's definitely going to be there because he's also keynote.
If only I can keep it together and not fangirl. And Wen Lawson. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And some other wonderful people too, whose names are eluding me, but I can picture their faces because I'm better at that than names. Yoris, what's Yoris's last name?
Oh, that's escaping me.
Yeah. But you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I don't have my phone to Google. Well,
we're going to have to fly you over, Bruce.
Yeah.
That would be so wonderful.
Hey, I have an idea. No, this is a little evil. Okay, so we don't make money off of doing this podcast. This is our free time.
Yep.
That we're just doing this. What
you want to crowdsource?
I was going to say, let's start a Patreon to get Bruce to double.
Yeah.
Okay, so
we could do a live episode, all three of us in the same room.
Yeah. So to our lovely listeners, we're not going to be thinking about me or Kara because we're already invited speakers to this conference in September 2025. But we don't know what's going to happen with Bruce yet. He may get a spot, but I've been told by organizers that there is no more funding for plane tickets. So he would have to get there on his own, which is a really, really long way when you're coming from Canada to Ireland.
Mm-hmm. Especially the farthest part of Canada to Ireland.
Yeah. So putting out the idea, dear listeners, please comment, send us messages, whatever. What would be your reaction? Would it be pretty cool? Maybe. I want to meet Bruce.
I do. Well, I've already met Bruce, but I want to meet you both together.
I'm blushing I'm blushing so much.
Let's talk more about this idea. Maybe we can make this happen. I love it.
Yeah. I think so.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, we've been talking for quite some time, and I know Bruce is so busy and has to run and re-record something he didn't record, or no, record for the first time, something he thought he recorded. And
blushing again.
Some papers to write, and but thank you. And Maja, I am so delighted for you. I'm so excited for this book to come out. I know it's going to do a world of good, and you have contributed something very important to these conversations and to the world.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm so excited too, but I'm also terrified.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I get that. Yeah. Par for the course.
Yeah. I just hope everyone finds something valuable in this book, something that contributes to their journey on not just stress management, but creating a life that works better for them. That's my big hope.
Mm-hmm. That's what it's all about.
Yep. Yes, it is.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for listening again, and to hearing all my rambles and all that. Thanks you guys for putting up with that.
Oh, they always do. So, some people come back and put up with us every single time. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.